And just a reminder for those who were around when we kind of presented the theme, or those who weren't around, this from now until the end of the year, our kind of theme is looking at what is set apart God. The theme of until the end of the year is set apart God. And as a community, we wanted to look into God and go back to the source of who we worship to help us inform why we worship. And many times we can be walking on this path of worshiping God, of Christianity, of being a disciple, but we can lose sight of why and who we are walking this path for. Many times in the Bible we see this. In Matthew 7, Jesus talks about people that say, Lord, Lord, but he will say, I never knew you at the end of the day. In Revelations, even churches, God talks about churches that are doing great deeds. They look so active, but he says they've lost their first love. They're saying, go back to God. We even see this, if people are familiar with the prodigal son, the younger son and the older son. And the older son at the end, he's left outside. He doesn't want to come in because he's kind of lost sight of who God is. And individuals and churches, and as individuals and churches, we can miss God because we fail to understand and embrace who he really is. And over the next few months, that's why we want to really zoom in on who is God. What is his character? So that this can be a stepping stone to, I would say, in the words of Job, and in Job 42:5, you don't need to turn there, he says, I only heard about you before, but now I've seen you with my own eyes. I want us to have that heart. We obviously, it's kind of a figurative speech that now he's gone through all these things, he really sees who God is. And that's why today we're going to go through and delve into God is holy. Before we do that, let me pray. Lord, thank you that we can come before you, that we come before you, the holy God, the almighty God. I pray, Lord, as I speak, Lord, you can help me speak clearly, help me have clarity of mind, speak through me, Lord. And I pray as we delve into your holiness, that we can really, as was said in the welcome, really experience you, Lord, and just learn a little bit more about you. I pray all these things in Jesus' name, amen. Even speaking on the topic of God's holiness, to be honest, is beyond me. And I think any human being, in fact. And I'm very thankful to God that he's allowed me to speak about that. And what I briefly share with you today, as just a caveat, it won't even scratch the surface on truly knowing what God's holiness is like. And we have our whole lives to do that, really. And experience and embrace, God and who God is. What makes God amazing is that there's always kind of mystery and wonder and awe when we consider him. Just as like when we look at the stars or space, there's a sense of awe, there's a sense of what's out there. There's still people trying to figure out what is going on. There's that awe that the things that we haven't even made out there, we want to know, we want to discover. And it's the same with God. But I know for myself, this can be lost with God because I can start putting God into boxes that fit what I know and what is comfortable with me. And I feel sad because sometimes I can miss so much on who God is because I put him in this box. And that's what we can do today. And I want us to kind of take God out of that box and allow our minds to really think about God. My first thought is, in determining God is holy, what does holy mean? I've got a few interactions through this sermon. So, when you think of holy, what comes to your mind straight away? What comes to your mind? Huh? Golden light. Okay, yep. Okay. Set apart. Yeah.
Glorifying music in the background.
Yeah, that like kind of organ, the organ music in the background, yeah. It's like a holy music. Any other thoughts? Joe? The sublime, yeah. I love the answers. I sometimes, in this society, if you go to the next slide, holy is often can often be associated with this like halo, like a holy person. Or like when you see like a priest with their like clothes on or nun, you think they're holy people. Or I don't know if you've heard of the saying, holier than thou. You know, when someone's holier than thou, they're like, you know, they're this like sublime person. You know, they don't do any wrong. They're always doing the right thing. You know, and sometimes in our society, holiness is more about, it can be determined as moral. You know, like morality. We're going to delve into what is holy then from God's perspective. You know, holy is mentioned about over 500 times in the Bible, which is quite a lot. And the first instance of the word holy used in the Bible is in Genesis 2, verse 3. And it says, "Then the Lord blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because he rested from all the work of creating that he had done." So we see this just on the first instance of the word holy, that, again, as someone said, set apart. So God's made a day holy. He's set apart a day that that he's not going to do work and he's just going to rest. So that day is called holy. It's unique. It's not like the other days. And then all throughout the Bible, holy is used in various ways. There's the famous, I'm sure people are familiar, when Moses goes to the burning bush and God says, "This is holy ground." You know, or there's a holy dwelling place we see, or Israel is called a holy nation. There's a holies of holies in the temple. Objects are holy. People are made holy. And so there's various ways that it's used. And it's this idea that that thing is unique or set apart. And then the first time that we see God being called holy in the Bible, there's two instances. In Exodus, I think I've got it on slides. Exodus 15:11. It says, "Who is like you among the gods, O Lord, glorious in holiness, awesome in splendor, performing great works, performing great wonders." And in Leviticus 11:44, now this is God talking directly about himself. He says, "I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am holy. Do not make yourselves unclean by any creature that moves along the ground." So we see here, God is saying, "I am holy." No, be holy because I am holy. So God is this set apart and unique being. And in the Hebrew, I think I got it on the next slide. I actually didn't know how to pronounce it. Does anyone know how to pronounce it? The next slide. I think it's Kodas. So this is from Blue Letter Bible. I just copy and pasted it. So I think it's Kodas. And kind of the meaning of this word, as I've said before, is something in the Bible Project says something or someone that is totally unique, therefore set apart. In another book that I got, I don't think I have it in my notes. Go to the next slide. Yeah, it's another book that I got. It says the primary source of holy is being separate. It comes from the ancient word to be cut or to be separate. So that's what holy means. Something that is unique, something that is set apart. And God being holy is that him being set apart is that he's separate from creation. Because he created it. He's the creator. And we see this in the first few chapters of the Bible. You know, we see him by command, he commands the light. He commands animals to be created, us to be created. Only God can do that. You know, only God is eternal. Only God can create something from nothing. Now imagine there's something that we usually, most people have laptops here. I think everyone has a laptop. And how a laptop works is that, or phone, you can say any device, is that we have it and then we command and tell it what to do. You know, we say, okay, press A, it will go A. B, it will do B. You know, if it didn't do that, we'll be like, let's go, this is rubbish, let's throw it out. But in the same way, even those little things that we command, but imagine then you could command just anything to appear. You know, just, okay, give me some Nando's. And then Nando's appears. Or give me some of this. And that appears out of nothing. You know, that is, like, it's beyond us, really. But that's what God can do. That's how unique he is. By his words, the very words he says, whatever he says, it comes to be. You know, God can give life and he has power over death. Only he can do that. And I like the way the Bible Project actually illustrates. Actually, I'm going to send out a list of resources after on the group chat that you can actually delve into this topic a bit more, which is really fascinating. I would encourage that. But the Bible Project illustrates God's holiness similar to the sun. In our solar system, the sun in a way is set apart. It's unique. And therefore, in a sense, it's kind of holy in a way. It's powerful and it's a source of life. And not only the sun itself, quote unquote, is holy or set apart, you could say, but everything it shines on experiences kind of the set apartness of the sun and its amazing qualities in our not universe, in our solar system. Thank you, solar system. You know, it has these amazing qualities. If we didn't have the sun, we're dead. You know. However, with all its amazing qualities, if you try and get close to the sun, you're literally going to get cooked. You're literally cooked. you're done. If you try and get close to the sun, even I think someone said, I went to a class, if the earth was like an inch closer to the sun, it's like we're cooked as well. So we'll burn to ashes, we're done. So though it's amazing and beautiful and gives all this beauty, if you approach it in the wrong way, you're done. You're finished. So even though we really appreciate it, it's actually dangerous at the same time. You know, we can't just rock up to the sun and be like, hey, you know, that just wouldn't happen. And even pushing this kind of illustration a bit further, if you couldn't say to the sun, even we enjoy all these benefits from the sun, we couldn't say to the sun, hey, I want you to change so that I can come closer to you. That if we should change the sun, then it wouldn't be the sun anymore. Do you get what I'm saying? So there's kind of this paradox of kind of God as well, as we look at it, that God is so beautiful, he's so amazing, but he is so holy that there is a dangerousness there to it as well, just like the sun. I'm not sure if any of you, another illustration that I thought of, this came to my mind. Has any of you burned magnesium at school? Okay, what happens when you... I thought it was just me because my science teacher was like crazy. Like we did some really dangerous things that I think he would have just got sacked if it was nowadays. But what happens when you burn magnesium? Made me think of holiness as well. Yeah, there's a bright... I used to love doing it. So like our teacher used to give us magnesium, then I'll get the magnesium and put it over the Bunsen burner, and there's this white like you couldn't look at it directly. It was just so like, whoa, like I couldn't look at it. But I loved it. I remember though there was this one time where I think someone was messing, I can't remember what we were doing, but this little spark of magnesium flew and then landed on someone's shirt, and actually his shirt went on fire, which was crazy. I spotted it and I like quickly ran over to him and started hitting him. So then he had like a hole in his shirt for the rest of the day. But anyway, that kind of, it reminded me of holiness because it's bright, you can't even look at it, but it's so amazing. And a quote that I found impactful is, it says, I'm convinced that it is one of the most important ideas, that's God's holiness, that a Christian can ever grapple with. It is it's our basic and whole understanding of God and of Christianity. So this writer is saying that if we're going to get anything about God, we have to understand his holiness. So now we've spoken about what holiness means, but what does that mean for us personally? And my next kind of point is connecting with the holiness of God. Connecting with the holiness of God. You know, has anyone here recently, again, this is a bit of interaction, spent intentional time in nature recently, or even whenever, and what effect did it have on you? Go for it.
So I recently moved out of London to a far place from here called Crawley.
Nice.
For a point of reference, if you've been to Gatwick Airport, it's like the town or city that's right next to Gatwick Airport. And I took a stroll like around like the town just to just get a vibe of what the place is like. And there's just so much greenery. There's so much like forest, and there's this massive park. And there's something about I some people might find this kind of strange, but I just love like nature and soil and just everything that grows into it. I don't have a green thumb. I'm not good at growing plants. The last sunflowers like they died. But something about being around nature is just like fulfilling, and like love the smell of like leaves and all of it. It's just it gives me energy a little bit.
Amen. Thanks for sharing. Jeff.
When we were in Hastings, Brielle and I would go for a walk by the sea, like each morning. And something about like, I know you can't see, no pun intended, like how far like the next bit of land is, and just like yeah, God is like unending. That sense of like calm, like when you realize how small you are and how big God is, then I don't know, it's like fears away.
Yeah. Yeah. Josh.
I like when I go home, so I like live in a village, and I always go on a walk like every day, and I always feel at peace. And it's like I realise that as humans we're like placed here by God on purpose in nature, so I always feel comfort and like peace when I'm in nature, silent, green place.
Yeah. One more for the sure.
I was sitting, there's scaffolding in our house the past 2 weeks, and I sit on the scaffolding whenever I can. And you just look out, and it's just like forest and trees, and you hear the birds sing. And I feel like it's so like, it's really humbling as well, because it's like, this whole world is like operating and like continuing without me. Like I don't need to do anything. And the world just keeps going, and these birds live and they sing and they kind of build a house, and then the trees still keep growing, and yeah, and it's just quite like it's, I feel suddenly very like separate from my life, and kind of understand like I'm not that important. Everything else will keep going. It has gone on for a very, very long time, and will continue to go on.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I think being in nature, one of the things it can do, it helps us realize who we are. It helps us realize actually our smallness, our insignificance. And I think sometimes the thing about living in cities, which is, I love the city, but we're just surrounded by man-made things, we can kind of elevate ourselves and think, oh yeah, look at all these man-made things, and we feed into that self-centeredness. And I remember on the caravan retreat, when I looked at the ocean, again, I just look at the ocean and be like, this is so vast. Who am I, really? So let's look at a time where a man encountered the set-apart God. Let's go to Isaiah 6. So I'm reading from Isaiah 6, and this will be like our main text for today. Isaiah 6, verse 1 to 10. It reads, In the year that King Uzzah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him was seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. At the sound of their voices, the doorposts and the threshold shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. Woe to me, I cried. I am ruined, for For I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. Then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. With it he touched my mouth and said, See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? And I said, Here I am, send me. He said, Go and tell this people, be ever hearing, but never understanding, be ever seeing, but never perceiving. Make the heart of this people callous, make their ears dull, and close their eyes. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed. Amen. We'll end it there. So this is an amazing kind of scene that we see with Isaiah coming into God's presence. And as I don't know if everyone knows, Isaiah is a prophet that was sent by God, like a messenger of God. And he was sent to the Israelites to warn, but also to give hope to the Israelites and ultimately help the Israelites turn back to God with all their hearts. And in this chapter, this is actually Isaiah having a vision. So he has this vision, and the vision is the setting of a temple that we see from the verses. And we see this glorious imagery of God. You know, he's high, he's exalted, he's on a throne. Just the train of his robe fills up the whole temple. This is an amazing image of God. And around him, we see seraphim. And I actually tried to find an image. I think I found one. I don't know if I put it in there. I tried to find one, but it was really hard to find one that matched the biblical. They had all these weird ones, like, they kind of look like devil worshippers. I don't know if it's in the slides, but I think I found one that looks similar. If it's in the slides, then it's there. But we have this image we have these seraphim around God. And I noticed that even though these were angelic beings, they covered their faces, you know, and their feet at the sight of God. And then what were they calling? They were calling out to each other, Holy, holy, holy. And it's like, I think that we're going to sing this song. It comes, you know, the next song we'll sing is Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Comes from this verse. So holy, 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 they're saying. Now, sometimes you can miss this, but the weight of what they're saying is like very weighty in kind of Hebrew literature. And in Hebrew literature, repetitions add significance to a word. It's kind of like if English was written out, it would be like bold or underline or exclamation mark, or we use adjectives like it was really a great experience or it was so amazing. But in Hebrew, they just repeat the word to give it weight. So we see this in the Bible where Jesus would say, you know, truly, truly, or in other times, verily, verily. It's like, this is a really true saying. Like, don't miss this. Or I don't know, Jess and I have been watching The Chosen again. And I love The Chosen. If you haven't watched it, I think I cry at every episode. I'm just like, it just gets to be like Jesus transforming lives and all the ups and downs of the disciples. But there's a phrase they say a lot, shalom, which means peace. But sometimes in the Chosen, or even just among Jews, they say shalom, shalom. They repeat the word. And that shalom, shalom, it's like, it goes from like peace to kind of perfect peace, to wholeness. That's what they're saying to someone. However, very few times is there a triple repeat. There's lots of double repeats, but a triple repeat in the Bible, I think 4 times. Once in Jeremiah, it says the temple, the temple, the temple. Twice in Revelation, where there's holy, 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 and there's woe, woe, woe. So God being described as holy, holy, holy is like so significant. You know, it's kind of like this, it's shown us, this is like one of the most important characteristics there can be if it's saying it 3 times about God. That he's holy, holy, holy. You know, it doesn't say, you know, we know that God is love, we know that God is just, but it doesn't say just. It doesn't say love, love, love. So there's something about holiness that is significant about God. And this is why understanding and experiencing God's holiness is so vital to our walk with God. You know, the calling, even that we see the calling, even them calling this holy, 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 it shook the parts of the temple. It was powerful. You know, and then we see Isaiah's response. And like most others in the Bible who encountered God's presence up close and personal, there was a true seeing of oneself. And it also was terrifying. It was actually a terrifying experience. It wasn't comfortable. He responds, "Woe to me! You know, I am ruined. You know, I've got unclean lips. I live among unclean lips." You know, in the audience of God, Isaiah calls judgment on himself. You know, he sees who he truly is before God. He says, "I'm done." In another version where it says, "I'm ruined," it's, "I'm undone. I'm finished," basically. I'm falling apart, basically. He refers to his lips. Maybe he sees these angelic beings saying, "Holy, holy, holy." And he's like, "Not even my lips. My lips are so unclean, I can't even say holy is God." You know, he sees that his real state. And we see that coming into connection with God's holiness. Actually, in this instance, sometimes it doesn't feel great. It's not that it's, "Whoa, I'm coming to God's presence." Actually, it's a sobering time. You know, it's actually where we feel small and frail and weak. And just like I was saying with nature, we can feel that way. That's like coming into God's presence. In other places in the Bible, we see the same thing when Peter kind of has this interaction with Jesus where he does a miracle. You know, Peter says to Jesus, "Go away from me, Lord. I'm a sinful man." You know, in the presence of Jesus, he could see himself. Even when people understand God's holiness, we see there's a parable that Jesus gave in Luke 18. There was a Pharisee and there was a tax collector. He says in Luke 18:13, I was going to read it quickly. It says, "But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, 'God, have mercy on me, a sinner.'" We see that, again, this tax collector gets it. He kind of sees himself compared to God, and he's like, "I can't even look up. You know, I need to have mercy from God." I'm not sure if you've ever been in a situation where you really saw where you stood. You know, where you've really seen yourself. You know, it may be just a practical thing or even before God. I know for me is when there was one time when I was learning how to play the drums. So after uni, I kind of got myself a drum kit, trying to teach myself. I realized trying to teach myself is not really going to work. I need to get a teacher. So I got a teacher, and we'll go through these little exercises every week. And then at the end, he would always do this. He'll do this part of the exercise, he'll do this amazing drum beat or fill or something that really technical. And I would just be there in awe. I'll be in awe and I'll be inspired, but I'll also feel overwhelmed. This is just too lofty for me to attain. Am I ever going to be able to drum like this? You know, I thought, this is so, wow. You know, and at that moment, even though throughout the class, I could be like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing so well. Look at all these things I'm doing." But then when I see it's him, I'm like, "Oh man, where am I really?" You know, I see a true reflection of where I'm at. But it's good. It's good if we want it to be good. That is it. And I remember I felt feeling the same with God. Before I became a Christian, I saw this video. Actually, there's these guys that go out and they ask people, you know, what are the 10 commandments? And people will be like, "Okay, thou shalt not kill," or "thou shalt not steal." And then you'll say to them, "Okay, great. So have you ever stolen? You know, have you ever lied? Have you ever done this?" And people will be like, "Yeah," it'll be hard for them to admit, but they'll be like, "Yeah, I've done that. And he'll say to them, "So that means you're a liar, you're a cheater," whatever they said. And then he'll say, "Okay, imagine you stood before God. Would you be innocent or guilty?" And I remember when I watched this video, it really got to me because I put myself in that position. And it's kind of hard to say. I found it really hard to say that I was guilty because oftentimes I see myself as a good person. But truly, if I was honest with myself, compared to God, even just the 10 commandments, I'm guilty. You know, I'm done. And I remember that I felt that was the first time I really saw the true, even though it was through a video, but I really got to see who I was. see the true nature of myself. And even though it was painful and a bit discouraging and there was guilt there, but I needed to see that. And I think if we don't see that, it's hard to even concept or really get God's grace the other way. And it's really hard to move forward when we don't know where we stand. It's just like practically if we have we're on Google Maps and we think we're in London, but we think we're in Birmingham, and then we're trying to go somewhere. If we don't know where we are at that time, we're not going to get to the place because we don't know where we are. And when we seek God's presence, when we're in God's presence, we see who we really are. Without seeing God's true holiness, we can't get that. It's hard to get that picture of ourselves. Either we can make God into our own image and think, oh yeah, God's like this, that suits our preferences and our lifestyle. Or we can compare ourselves to other people. And either we feel good and be like, hey, look, that person is not as good as me, so I'm great. Or we can look at people and be like, they're so great, I'm just so bad. We can compare ourselves to other people rather than going to God. And all throughout the Bible, we see the people of God encounter the presence of God, and it has an impact on them. And I think for us as a community, we need to seek this. And I think even through Jesus, we can seek this. We can have this presence on our life all the time, but we need to go into that. You could hear the most elegant sermon. You could hear me speak for the next 3 hours on holiness. You could have the most encouraging day. You could have the most great time with people, but nothing will beat kind of being in God's presence, yourself, totally being in awe of him and reverence of him. Nothing will beat that. And we have to want to do that. We have to yearn to do that. For you today, do you intentionally seek to be in God's presence, to think about God, to contemplate the holiness of God? Is that something that you go after? If it is, great. If it isn't, I'll seriously urge you to do that. Because when we are aware of the presence of God, we become most aware of ourselves as creatures. When we meet the absolute, we know immediately that we're not absolute. When we meet the infinite, we become acutely conscious that we are finite. When we meet the eternal, we know that we're temporal. To meet God is a powerful study in this kind of contrast. And we need to meet God ourselves. We see here then later on with Isaiah that not only does it end there, but just him being terrified and saying, woe is me, but something amazing happened. He is made holy. And that's my last point, made holy. So then we see that one of the seraphim flew to him with a live coal in his hand, which he has taken with tongs. So this is something that's very hot. Because he didn't even touch it. He took it with tongs. And it touched the mouth of Isaiah. And he says, your guilt is taken away, your sin is atoned for. See, God didn't just leave Isaiah undone and finished and stay in his woefulness, but he did something about it. He touched his mouth. He says, you're not unclean anymore. Your guilt is taken away. The very thing that was causing discomfort for Isaiah and guilt and maybe shame, and probably wanted Isaiah, when he came to God, he probably wanted to hide away. You just want to hide. But now that is taken away by God. How amazing is that that Isaiah, who's unclean, now meets this set-apart God, and now he experienced that set-apartness for himself by God. And I see, even throughout the Bible, we see this common pattern. We see that God appears, people quake in terror, God forgives and heals, and then God actually, in Isaiah, he actually sends him out to go on a mission. So he went from being a broken man to a man who's set apart and going on a mission. And God is in the business of making us holy. And we're not holy because of our own conduct or our own behavior, but we are holy because God is holy and he makes us holy. And if we think that we are holy by the righteous things we do, then we've totally missed the picture. We missed it. Only God can cleanse us. Only he can take away our guilt and make us whole. No, God makes us holy, and then he puts us in a position to live out that holiness. To kind of stay holy. I don't know if that's the right phrase. But he makes us holy and helps us stay holy. Let's just say that. And kind of a way that I conceptualize this is, have you ever been gifted something? This is a question. Have you ever been gifted something to you that is of great value that you felt like you didn't deserve? Go for it.
My education.
Wow. That's it. That's a good one. Any others? Want to follow on? Jess.
Well, not that I don't want to, but it's just for time. But when I was trying to move here, anyway, a series of unfortunate events, I had spent all of my savings helping or traveling to where my best friend's mom was, who was dying at the time anyway. And so I wanted to move to London, but I had no money to do it. And I just was like, I'm gonna have to come through with the finances. And I needed 13 grand basically to move here. I paid $80 per week, so I needed less money to move here. And I did my taxes, and in the end, my tax return ended up being $13,000, which I just sat there and I cried. And the poor accountant in front of me was like, I mean, it's a lot of money, so but I was just like, wow, I felt like in that moment God just gave me the gift of moving to London when I felt I had no means to get there on my own. So
Wow.
Thanks for sharing. That's a great story. I love that story every time I hear it. But imagine now, let's conceptualize. Imagine that you got this amazing, I have the next slide, amazing new rug, white rug, cream rug that was worth loads of money. Look at this rug. It looks so nice. It looks clean. The place looks clean. So imagine you got that. And now imagine these, next slide, these lads turn up to your house. And they want to come in. How would you feel, or what would you do? Take off your shoes. Okay, wow. Just take off your shoes. Okay, guys. Yeah. Take free showers. Okay. Huh? Repent. Wow.
they can just have fun outside,
Yeah. Okay. They can chill outside. Yeah. Yeah. So we know that we, even in our own nature, kind of way of thinking, there's some things that are inappropriate. These muddy guys coming into that and stepping on that. It's just inappropriate. It's not gonna run. Most people, if you're nice, you would allow them, but it's just inappropriate. You wouldn't want them to come in.
Right.
It's kind of like, would you get into bed with your shoes on? No. Why not? Huh? What? Heinous activity. Okay. It's just inappropriate, right? It's just how can I have my shoes in my bed? If you do that, it's okay. We love you here. But it's just how can I have that in my bed? It just seems inappropriate. So it's just kind of just as we consider this physically inappropriate, there's things that are inappropriate for our souls, that make us unclean before God, that make us unacceptable, you could say. And even those things, sorry. I need to just read my notes here, sorry. Yes. So even those things we can be unclean in our souls. But yet, I think why I use these illustrations is because the amazing thing with God is that even if these lads, say they turn up to God's house, most of us would be you need to just go away, get a shower, and come back. With God, he says, go and make yourself clean and then come back. But the amazing thing with God, like with Isaiah, he doesn't say that. He actually makes them clean, which is just only God can do that. It's a miraculous thing, a supernatural thing that only God can do for us. So he right there, he'll just make them clean and then they can come in. You know, and when we realize how much God has given us out of our grace, how much he's given us out of his grace, just like we look at this carpet and want to keep it clean, we value that, we would want to value God's presence in our life. We'll have a different mindset. We'll have a different perspective on what God has made us. So that actually, when we know what we've been made, then we can, it's like, it helps us stay holy or kind of live that way so much more easier. Because we're not trying to do it with our own efforts. It's just, God's made me this way, now let me live it out. If that makes sense. I'm hoping that's making sense. And if someone came to threaten this, just like if these guys came to our house and threatened this kind of clean state, we'll be protective. We'll be like, no, we don't want those things to enter into our lives. However, many times we can forget that we have been made holy by God and that what our true worth is in God. You know, and we can sell ourselves cheap and engage in things that are unholy, you know, that are defiled. Jesus says, you know, things that we engage in can defile us. Or even Muslims say it's haram, you know, unacceptable things. You know, for young people, and even in just common things, we can get, Jesus says in Matthew 7, things that defile us, sexual immorality. You know, we can engage in things like pornography or self-pleasing, you know, that defile our souls. They make us unclean. You know, just as we'll be like, hey, we will see that unclean thing, but hey, no, I don't want that. You know, that's the same way we need to protect our souls. But sometimes we forget who we really are and we engage in those things. And sometimes it can be small things, small compromises, like flirting, for example. You know, drinking, you know, getting drunk makes us unclean. You know, this self-centered thinking is not of God. We can start valuing our academics, you know, above kind of the holy status that we have in God. You know, and there's so much more. There's a whole list in Matthew 7, and Mark 7, that is. But there's a lot, sometimes young people often get entangled in those things. You know, and they spoil us, they defile us. You know, and even if you're here and you're like, I don't really know about this Jesus guy, even do the research on it psychologically. These things destroy us. They destroy us, even psychologically, from people that don't even believe in God. They've done research on it, and those things really mess with our minds. And they mess with our hearts. And sometimes, a lot of these things we can escape, we want to escape to deal with something inside. There's a wound inside us, and if we're feeling guilty, we may escape to that. I know for me, I'll go to a lot of these sins when I felt stressed or discouraged. You know, instead of running to the presence of God and engaging with him, I would engage with the easy route out. You know, because coming before God there's that little bit of uncomfortability, but then I would rather just do these things which are easy and they feel the short-term pleasure. You know, we need to really be on our guard. We need to remember, firstly, that we are holy before God, and be on our guard that we don't allow things that corrupt that. You know, that we continue to walk in God's light and God's holiness. You know, and the amazing thing is, as I also shared in the communion, the amazing thing is that we have today is that we have Jesus. So obviously in the Old Testament, they had like the temple, they had the holies of holies, but now Jesus, we can enter God's presence whenever through Jesus. You know, that is just remarkable, that we can have that every day of our lives, that we don't need to go through a priest or we don't need to go through anything, but through Jesus we can have that. So I think it's a question I have is, do you realize that you have been made holy through Jesus? Do you realize that you've been made holy through Jesus? And maybe you're here today and you're like, I don't even feel holy. You know, how do I even find holiness? I'll say, the scriptures tell us, find someone to help you. Even if you're here and you're a Christian, you just feel like, I'm just not holy. Let's rely more on God's promises and what he's done. And I love the ICOC's communion, like the reset. God can reset us when we come to him. Just like he did with Isaiah, he put those coals on his lips to purify him. That's what God can do for us today. So now we're made holy by God. Let's stay engaged with God to stay holy and fulfill his purposes I have. As he sent Isaiah on this mission to go and prophesy, he has a mission for us today, a holy mission that he wants us to engage in. So in conclusion, we looked at, what is holiness? That means set apart, and how God is holy. And that in our Christian walk, if we really want to get to know God, we have to understand and want to experience God's holiness in our lives. And we looked at also that coming into God's presence, we see our true selves, and we need to see that so we can understand his grace, and also that we are made holy by God. I know I went on for a bit long. Please forgive me. Thank you. Hope that was helpful.